Excellent. So once again, I would like to welcome everyone to our Young and Brave program. Today is a very exciting day because we are going to deal with a very important topic that actually I believe every one of us can relate to, and that is emotional trauma. So we are going to be looking at understanding the impact of emotional trauma. Oftentimes, when bad things happen to us in life, such as maybe car accidents, maybe some of us have witnessed violence in our lives, maybe in our families, maybe we've experienced one of our loved ones die, or it could be surgery, a bit trauma, natural disasters, which you keep hearing all the time. It could be the end of a relationship. It could be that you were a victim of discrimination, which I've heard so many women complain about. It could be at your workplace. You experience a lot of stress or job loss or harassment or illness. It could be illness, different kinds of illness, or maybe you've experienced somebody, or you know somebody has experienced, someone very close to you has experienced it. What happens is that we often, it takes a while for that pain to go away and for us to feel safe again. And I know you've been hearing about the word trauma and you wonder what is emotional trauma. So I'm going to give you a brief definition of what emotional trauma is. So according to the American Psychological Association, trauma is defined as an emotional response to a terrible event like accident, rape, or natural disaster. A person may experience trauma as a response to any event that they find physically or emotionally threatening or harmful. So emotional trauma is the result of extraordinary self-events that what happens is that it shatters our sense of security, making us feel helpless and insecure. It can leave us struggling with upsetting emotions, memories, and anxieties that won't go away. And sometimes it leaves us feeling numb, disconnected, and we're unable to trust other people. And that is why some people find it hard to actually trust in a relationship, to actually give them their whole self and trust other people. So traumatic experiences often involve a threat to life or safety. But any situation that leaves us feeling overwhelmed and isolated can also result in emotional trauma, even if it doesn't involve physical harm. And it's not the objective circumstances that determine whether whether the event is traumatic, but it's your subjective emotional experience, your emotions as you're going through the life experience. That's what makes it traumatic. The more frightened and helpless you feel, the more likely that you are to be traumatized. It could be a one-time event, it could be an ongoing event, and it could be even commonly overlooked causes that we tend to neglect that can affect us. So a traumatized person can feel a range of emotions, both immediately after the event, and it could be a long-term event. They may feel overwhelmed, they might feel helpless, shocked. Some actually have difficulty processing the experiences. And I've had a young lady that I spoke with. She experienced trauma when she was young. And one of the things that she told me, she was like, when she experienced it, that she had difficulty processing that experience. She felt it was unreal for her. And it could have a long-term effect on the person's well-being, okay? So for today, I know some of you may or may not have experienced trauma, abuse, or neglect in your life, maybe while you were young. And for those of you that may have experienced it, sometimes maybe the consequences are still being felt. So whatever the cause of the trauma might be for you, whether it happened years ago or it just happened recently, I want you to know that you can make healing changes and move on with your life. And that is why we have one of my favorites today. She is going to help us. She's going to help us. She's going to talk a little bit more about emotional trauma. And she's going to tell us and help us find out ways to process it and to heal. I said she's one of my favorites. I call her my daughter because she calls me her mother. I've known her from when she was young. She was a teenager then, so I can tell her life story.
That's right.
And I am so proud of who she has become. We're her youth leaders when we were in Toronto, and that's why you can see us all talking and we're all so excited seeing each other.
Yes.
So I am proud of who she has become, and I'm glad that she's able to come here today to share with us what she has gleaned over the years. So today I'm proud to introduce to you Reverend Dr. Harriet Answer, and I'm just going to read her bio. Okay. Dr. Answer is a registered clinical Christian counselor who have been helping others overcome their personal challenges for years and have witnessed numerous successful client outcomes. She has experience helping individuals and families in hospitals, community health centers, churches, shelters, social housing communities, and counseling centers. Dr. Harriet is a co-senior pastor alongside her husband at Faith International Church in Toronto. She also has a private counseling practice, Evolve World Counselors, where she supports individuals, families, couples, etc., to work together to sort out challenges and make steps towards recovery and help our clients come to resolution and healing in a safe and non-judgmental space. Annually, she travels for missions work under the umbrella of Beyond My Beauty Ministry. And I remember when that ministry was established, a ministry she founded over 10 years ago. Her heart and passion are seeing people's life changed and transformed so that they can be everything God has created them to be. In 2019, she won the Religious Outreach Award in Canada, presented by the Ghanaian Canadian Achievement Award team, and was recognized by the Canadian House of Commons. She's a writer, author of 2 books, and releasing 3 books in winter 2021. I can't wait. She's a speaker and also a facilitator. So I'm proud to introduce to you my favorite Dr. Harriet Answer. Take over. Woo, girl.
Wow. Wow. We give it all to God. And
That's right.
Dr. Blessing, what can I say? This is so humbling. It's almost like a full circle. I used to be one of the first people that stood in the front seat listening to you and Dr. Ude teach and preach and direct. And I didn't give a lot of trouble as a young person, but you know, young people, we have a way of giving trouble but not giving trouble. But I want to say thank you for your patience, your direction, your prayers, and you've never left my mind. You've always left an indelible mark in my walk with God, in my practice. And, you know, there are times where I remember all the things that you taught me by not speaking, just by looking at your lives. So I want to say thank you. And for all you wonderful, wonderful ladies that are present today at the Young and Brave. This is amazing. I tell people all the time, being young is 99 and under. So if you're 99 years old and under, you're young. So we are all in the right group, and we are brave. And the word bravery comes from not a person that is down, but a person that can believe to rise again. So we're all in the right atmosphere. And today we're going to deal with one of the topics that's really dear to me. You heard my bio being read, but I want you to understand that this bio is read of a person that has also experienced multiple emotional trauma before. So you're not speaking to someone that has it all together. And as I go through the presentation, as much as the Lord will lead me, I'll open up my lives for you to know that emotional trauma can happen to us all, as Dr. Blessing said. Some people are able to deal with it, others are not able to deal with it. The impact is individually based, and the impact can be lifelong lasting, or it can be short-lived, or it can be just periodically lived. So we're going to look at emotional trauma, what causes it, the impact, how to move forward, and how you now can be empowered to help others. And then we're going to go into conclusion of what the scripture says about emotional trauma. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about myself, and then I'm going to read 3 stories about clients that I saw in the past, but I've changed their name to protect their identity. Okay, so I want you to picture me, and this is my life. 8 years old, went to school, father is sick. He was dealing with diabetes complication, was in one particular hospital. 8 years old, I'm in school, you know, playing with your friends, think nothing of it. You know, your dad is sick, but you know, he normally will go to the hospital and come back. But this time around, your mom sends her secretary to come to school to say, we need to get you because we are going to take your father to another hospital, a bigger hospital. Each time you are picked up from school as a child, you're excited because nobody really wanted to be in school. So I got excited, went with my mom. Got home, they changed me quickly, and then we went to the initial hospital that my father was. And then we went into the ambulance to transport him to another hospital. I have an older sister that was in a boarding school. Boarding school is a school that you only come home during vacation. So I'm in the front seat. My mom is beside me. The ambulance is driving. My dad is in the back seat with a nurse, and we're going into another hospital. My dad was a medical doctor. So while we're driving, we can hear him saying, I want water, I want water, I want water. Mind you, I'm 8 years old. And then there was silence. We finally get to the bigger hospital. And because he's a medical doctor, all the healthcare workers are rushing to come and help him. They come out, and I hear one of the doctors say to my mom, he's already dead. He is already dead. 8 years old. All you knew was you went to school, you got picked up, that your dad would be transported, and you hear the word, he is already dead. Now, in my 8 years old mind, it didn't click to me that he's dead and gone. So all of a sudden, I see my mom screaming and crying, and they're trying to hold her, and I still don't understand. Somehow my uncle gets to the scene, and my uncle says to my mother, says to me, Harriet, your father is gone. Whenever you see anyone that looks like him that is calling you, do not go because he is gone. And I said, what do you mean he's gone? And he said, he's dead. He's no longer living with us. That was my first experience of emotional trauma. This story I'm sharing with you, the impact did not leave me. I was 8 years old. The impact did not leave me until I got married 14 years ago. The reason being, he died on Father's Day, June 14th. And each time, June 15th. And each time we will celebrate Father's Day, that will fall on that date, the anniversary of that emotion, that pain, that loss. The definition that American Psychology Association gave, that Dr. Blessing read, I lived it. And it took so many years before I was finally able to move through Father's Day. And the reason I was able to move through Father's Day is because when I got married, my husband almost replaced the father figure that I did not have for all these years. 3 years ago, he traveled on missions on Father's Day. You would think that after maybe 8, 9 years, I was okay. No, that Father's Day, the memory of the loss, the words of he is gone came back. Why do I share this story with you? I share this story with you that even with all the biography, going ahead to get my doctorate and helping people, the impact of emotional trauma can be episodic, can be ongoing, or can be dealt with. So with that being said, keeping my story in mind, I'm going to read to you 3 quick life stories of people that have suffered from emotional trauma, change their names to protect their identity. The first guy is Adam. Adam went into solitary confinement and severe torture in Yemen. That left Adam with deep depression and having nightmares consistently. Sarah, 12-year-old girl, forcibly taken from her home in the rural Congo as a child, she endured a decade of isolation and severe abuse. Numbing her physical feelings and emotional pain was her only way and her only means of survival. She started cutting herself. Sue, a 38-year-old lady, after a lifetime of rejection from her family and community in Mexico and a violent attack that nearly killed her, she decided to set out to El Salvador in search of sanctuary. Emotional trauma is experienced by real people. And when I say real people, when you look at us, we all have a flesh. You can see me, you can touch, you can feel. This is the house that embodies who we truly are. Who we truly are is our soul. And our soul is made out, of course, with our intellect, our will, and our emotions. And I'm going to dwell on the emotions part for a second. And then, of course, we have our spirit that is able to commune with Christ, commune with the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. Your physical body, if you cut yourself or if you get into a car accident and you break your hand, it's called physical trauma. You're rushed to the trauma center, they stitch you up, they try to pull you back together. You go through the pain, it heals, but there are scars. When someone experiences emotional trauma, and I'm going to define it again in a moment and just piggyback on what Dr. Blessing said. When you experience emotional trauma, I want you to think about this way. The pain has bypassed your physical body. So picture someone coming to rob your house, okay? They now break through the entry door and they come inside your house. How frightening is that? So if the emotional trauma bypass your physical body, now it's in your soul, which houses your intellect, your will, and your emotions. And when that happens, it is not easily identifiable. You know you're stressed. You know you're numb. You know you want to stay away from people. You know you're dealing with certain things, your fear, anxiety, but you can't really put your hand to it. That is how I can paint a picture of emotional trauma. So when someone's house is broken into and their goods are taken and they're trying to explain to the police that this is what happened, the police cannot say, I don't believe you, because the police was not there when it happened. Same way with people's emotional trauma. Only they can tell their story. Only they can go through their journey of healing. Only they can tell you that the impact is not gone. For me, it comes and goes. I can be in a good place. The minute Father's Day is coming, I begin to think about my father with all my accomplishments. I wish he was here to see it. On my wedding day, I wish he would have walked me. Even though I was so happy, a part of my emotions was still experiencing the impact of that loss. So with that being said, I'm just going to piggyback on what Dr. Blessing said. Emotional trauma is two things that you need to pay attention to. It damages and it injures. The emotions after someone has lived through an extremely frightening or distressing event, such as, like Dr. Blessing said, it could be a car accident, a loss of a loved one. It could be challenges that you cannot overcome. It could be a diagnosis of an illness. It could be a chronic illness, chronic pain. These challenges that the person or the people experience now causes them to not function or cope as a normal person will cope. So when I say normal person can just get up in the morning, brush their teeth, put on their clothes and go. Someone that is suffering from emotional trauma have challenges doing the activities of daily living in a very regular way. What are some of the examples? Loss of a loved one, witness a traumatic event. Let's go back to what happened to George Floyd. I'm not going to dwell too much on it. Let's think about the young girl that recorded the video that caused this police to be charged. Even though the girl was not part of the event, just witnessing and recording the event. I remember hearing her on CNN and she was describing how for a year she's been numb. That can be an example of emotional trauma. You don't have to be a participant. You even witnessing someone raping someone can have an emotional impact on you. You witnessing a parent consistently insulting a child or consistently physically abusing a child can have an emotional impact on you. So it's called the bystander effect. And when not dealt with, will affect you emotionally. And what it does is that it leaves you in a state of hopelessness and helplessness. And that's when we're going to talk about hope at the end of this presentation. Because when you have no hope, the scripture even says your bones are brittle. When there's no hope in a tree, the tree cannot germinate. When there's no hope in a situation, there is nothing to look forward to. And that's one of the impacts of emotional trauma. You feel like you're trapped in a cage and you're unable to escape. And then, of course, it leaves you struggling with your emotions and dealing with people. For some people, it leaves an upsetting emotions. For some others, it's not upsetting. It's just annoyance just set in when they remember the events or the incidents, and they feel as though they cannot revenge. They feel as though they cannot fight back. It leaves them helpless. It also leaves you feeling numb, which is a very, very dangerous place to be. When you're numb, when you've been emotional abused for a very long time, some people describe it as I'm numb. I remember there was a situation that I had to deal with in my practice at one point, and it was a domestic abuse incident where the wife was always beat up and her hair was dragged. So of course the police got involved, and she came to see me, and she said to me, I don't mind being beat up. I just want him to stop dragging my hair. Because she's become numb to the physical abuse, to the insults, that she has accepted that the beating is normal. Of course, you and I know it's not normal, but that's how people can become numb to situation. People that have lived through war-torn countries and in war zones will tell you that when I hear the sound of a bomb, yes, it startles me, but after a while, it's just sound. I remember in my because I used to be a labor and delivery nurse, and I remember one time we're delivering a baby, and one of the husbands of my patient had just returned back from Afghanistan during the war. And I remember the wife was in labor for about 8 to 9 hours, and for 8 to 9 hours, even though the lady was moaning in pain, he just sat there with a newspaper. He didn't go to the washroom. He didn't drink water. He didn't eat. He sat there with the newspaper 8 to 9 hours. He didn't move. He didn't do nothing. So eventually I asked the wife, what does your husband do for a living? He said, well, he's a soldier and he only came down for the birth of our first son and he's going back. That is an impact of course, multiple traumas, but emotionally he became numb. So what are some of the causes of emotional trauma? What can we identify? Dr. Blessing mentioned a few of them. I'm just going to piggyback on it. Accidental injury, unprovoked violent attack. You're just walking on the street. I think about 3-4 years ago, if you probably heard on the news, there was this whole young street van attack guy. So this guy just rented a van and just plunged through a whole bunch of people that was walking on the sidewalk. So it was unprovoked. He attacked them. Emotional trauma can be caused by sometimes a one-time event. It could be just an accident, a loss of a loved one, or sometimes it can be ongoing, such as battling a life-threatening illness such as cancer, leukemia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, bulimia. There's so many things. So it can be ongoing. It could be domestic violence that the spouse doesn't want to report it, or the children don't want to report it. It could be childhood neglect or ongoing in the case of Sue, the one that I read for you. And then sometimes emotional trauma can be overlooked when it's common, such as a breakup of a significant relationship. It doesn't have to be a spousal relationship like divorce. It could just be a friend that you've had for a very long time. You've trusted them with so many things, and out of nowhere, there's a loss of that relationship, or there is, a dynamic change in that relationship that can be easily overlooked as something that can affect your emotions. It can also be a very disappointing experience, such as you have saved money, you have gone to the bank, they've told you go get a mortgage, you can buy a house, you bought the house, you put all your life savings, and now you go to the bank and they tell you, I'm sorry, your credit is bad, you cannot qualify for the mortgage, and now you lose the house. That can easily be overlooked, but that can leave an emotional impact on a person, because each time they remember their life saving and it's all going down the drain, it causes an enormous amount of stress, and if not dealt with, can cause emotional trauma. Now, if you're already under heavy stress, you are easily susceptible to emotional trauma, because if you're already stressed out, it's easy for you to just take on a lot and just be emotionally overdrained. Okay, now I want to talk about the impact. The impact is individually based. How I will heal from the loss of my dad is totally different than how someone will heal from the loss of their mom or another parent. How someone would deal with having a car accident is different than, I remember when I was age 8, I got into no, age 10, a bad car accident. And for years, I would not go into a car. Like when I get into a car, I physically begin to shake because I remember that experience. 6 people died, witnessed them, like bodies were all spread all around. And, my experience was extremely traumatic because they thought I was dead. So they were going to put me in the morgue. And then I shrugged my shoulder and I kept hearing them say, she's not dead, she's not dead. And it's true. Your sense of hearing is the last senses that leaves you before you die. Because I could hear everything. I kept saying, I'm not dead, but they couldn't hear me. So that traumatic incident caused me to never want to go into a car. The fact that I'm actually physically driving, it's only by the grace of God, because whenever I saw a car, I literally would just like freeze. It took years of counseling and therapy and prayer and literally just facing my fear to get out of it. So how somebody deals with it is totally different. When trauma symptoms typically may last for a few days for some people, few months, and then gradually it's supposed to fade away. Now, if it doesn't fade and it's getting challenging, it is time for you now to seek help. It means that it's now becoming into post-traumatic stress syndrome. And we never want it to get to that phase. You want to be able to catch it while it's fresh and while it can be dealt with. I did say that we all react to trauma in different ways. So we got to give people grace and give people the time to work through the process. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly talk about some of the emotional symptoms and then the physical symptoms. Physically, you just can't sleep. Why can't you sleep? There's a lot on your mind. You're thinking about the events. You're thinking about the divorce. You're thinking about how you almost lost your life. You're thinking about how you were tortured in the case of Adam when he was in a solitary confinement. You're thinking about, what's going to happen if I get into a car again. In my case, that's what it is. Or even if you're able to sleep, you wake up with nightmares. You wake up thinking like, I'm going to die. Those are all physical symptoms, and there are ways to deal with that. Difficulty concentrating. You start talking about one thing before you know, you've lost your train of thought. Now, ladies, I'm not talking about the one when you have several kids and you try to call different names. I'm young, but I call my kids different names. I call them, they go, Mom, I'm Junior. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I meant the other one. That one.
You're not alone.
Oh, there you go. I'm not talking about that one happens us all. Or you go to Walmart, right? To buy milk, but you buy everything else and leave the milk. Okay, that always happens. That always happens. So, but I'm talking about severe difficult concentration where you can't concentrate on a task. Of course, loss of appetite. COVID has taught us that loss of appetite does not exist because we're all home. We're all really packed on the fridge and we packed on the pounds, and that is okay. Now that we're coming out, we're going to share the pounds. But I'm talking about severe loss of appetite where you don't have the desire to even physically eat. You don't have the desire to physically put anything or drink anything. Those are all physical symptoms. Emotional symptoms, the first thing I always tell people to pay attention is that gut feeling, the shock that comes with it. It's almost like you're shocked, like you hear a news and you're shocked. You almost got into a car accident, you're shocked. You are going, life is good, and all of a sudden your husband's like, I'm leaving you. Your spouse just packs your stuff and leave. You're shocked. You are in disbelief. Those are all some of the emotional symptoms that you must pay attention to. Then you become angry. I'm not talking about where you're just like, I'm angry. You're physically angry. Like we can see in your eyes, we can see in the way you speak. Those are all emotional impacts of emotional trauma. You're feeling sad and hopeless. In an atmosphere, of course, the Christmas season is almost upon us where people are singing carols and decorating. You are just sad and hopeless. You got to go back and think about what event has caused me and has impacted me where I cannot celebrate in a season where it's supposed to be joyous. You want to pay attention to that. Of course, now you begin to withdraw from people. You're not interested in going to church. You're not interested in going into a support group. You're not interested in going to the mall. All you want to do is to sit in a room with the light turned off, because that's where you get your comfort. It's called an emotional symptom. You want to pay attention to it. And of course, you just feel like you don't belong. And I'm not talking about a group where you're not wanted, so you already feel that you don't belong. But let's say you have a set of friends and all of a sudden you feel like, I don't belong into this group. How do you move forward? That is a big question. How do you move forward? Because now we've defined it. I've shared my story. I've shared story with 3 of my clients. Dr. Blessing has given us the definition. I've added a little bit to it. How do you move forward? There is no point collecting so much information when you don't know how to move forward. Then you become, I think it was a man of God, in his Dr. Mokwa, he said, don't be a collector of information. Apply the information. So how do you move forward? How do you heal? You, first of all, need to sit and ask yourself, do I want to heal? You got to be honest with yourself. Do I want to heal? I will tell you something. When I was going through the whole many years of grieving my dad and remembering his memory, a part of the attention that my mom and my sister gave me around Father's Day, I didn't want to lose that. So even though emotionally I've been impacted, I'm grieving, I'm sad, I'm remembering the anniversary of his death and what I went through. My mom had moved on, my sister had moved on, but sometimes the attention feels good that you don't want to come out. So the first thing is you need to ask yourself, this situation that I'm going through, do I want to come out? And that answer will lead you to either want to come out or close the door in this whole emotional prison that you find yourself. The first thing you want to do in moving forward is you want to avoid isolation. You want to avoid isolation because isolation brings you to a place of continuous rehearsing the pain, rehearsing the trauma, bringing the fear, and almost like you're just immobilized. So you want to avoid isolation. Now, you don't have to talk about the trauma with people all the time, because sometimes the more you talk about it, the more the fear and the impact comes. But you don't also have to isolate yourself. You can say that, you know what, my friends can come and visit, but please let us not talk about the issue because I am not ready. Okay. And that is okay. You can say that, you know what, I will go to the restaurant and have a bite, but can we please not talk about this incident? And you should be able to communicate that clearly to their loved ones. And if they are your loved ones, they will respect that. So avoid isolation. Participate in other social activities. Social activities can be as simple as joining a knitting and crocheting team. Okay, it could be as simple as going to your YMCA or your social club in your community and just watching people play basketball. They don't know what you have been through, but you are not isolating yourself. You can join a dance class. Listen, if you don't know how to dance, that is a good reason to join a dance class, because when they say move to the left and you're moving to the right, you will laugh at yourself. You will not be trapped by yourself. You will have people. Now, when you go back to your home, you may still feel isolated, but within that 30 minutes, that 40 minutes, you were out. So number one, avoid isolation. The other thing I want to encourage is to begin to volunteer. Oh, Dr. H, I don't have the energy to volunteer. You don't have to go above and beyond your capacity of what you can do. It can be as simple as making a point that every Tuesday you say hello to your neighbor. Make it a point that once a month, you're just going to go to the YMCA or your ER, your hospital, and volunteer about something. Maybe you're good in French. You want to tutor someone's child 30 minutes every month for French. Volunteer. When you volunteer, what you do is that you reclaim your sense of power and you reclaim your sense of identity. Okay. The third thing is ask for support. Ask for support. And the support doesn't necessarily need to say that, well, I lost a loved one and I need support in coping with it. It could be like, I need support to reconnect back with people. I need support with a support group that deals with emotional trauma. I need a support group that can support survivors. I need a support, and there is tons of support groups out there, but you want to be careful the one that you join, because not all of them can speak to your spirituality or your religious beliefs or your values. There are some weird ones out there. So you want to really be able to know which one. And I mean, listen, you have a great resource in Dr. Blessing. ask her. She will point into the right direction. Young and Brave team already is a support group where you feel that, you know what, I can talk to Dr. Blessing about what I'm dealing with, and she's going to channel me to the right place, and she's going to give me that extra 30 minutes. Avoid being by yourself. Ask for support, and then make new friends. It might be fearful at first, but there are a lot of people waiting for other people to become their friends, whether at church, in a group that you feel safe. Go out of your point and make friends. I tell people one of the easiest ways to make friends is buy a $5 Tim Hortons card and say to the Lord, who can I bless today? Give it to them and say, hey, I just wanted to be your friend. You'd be shocked. Gifts always make room for people. Maybe you don't have $5, buy a $2 card. Or just buy a regular card and write something sweet. I know this season has been tough for you. You are in my prayers, and send it out. Those are ways and means that you can begin to reconnect back with people. And then also, when it comes to family, I know that sometimes the trauma came from family, but don't generalize family as a whole. It could be an uncle that raped. It could be a mom that physically abused. It could be a father that emotionally abused. So you don't want to now put the whole family in one pot. There is always someone that you can reconnect back with in your family to have that sense of community again. Other things too, of course, to consider, the final one is to seek for professional therapy and professional help. How do you know you're ready for professional help? When you've done all that I've suggested and you can still not function normal, and you can still not shake off the pain, and you can still not get rid of the hurts and the trauma and the incidents, and you're immobilized, now you can tell yourself, maybe I'm ready to invest in my emotional wellness by seeking for professional help. And some things to consider prior to seeking for help is, number one, it's going to take time. You're going to sit with a stranger, or in your case, someone that you know, and literally relive the traumatic incidents again. The good thing about therapy is that they give you a chance to speak. They give you a chance to cry. They give you a chance to be upset in a very safe space without judging you. When you have trouble, severe trouble functioning at school, in your career, at workplace, it is time to now say, maybe I need to talk to somebody. When you feel that you are emotionally numb, you see somebody beating someone and you do nothing about it because you have experienced that, it is time to seek professional help, because now your emotional has become very numb. And finally, when you begin to now use alcohol and drugs to deal with the pain, to feel better, it is time to seek help, because at this point, you get into the danger zone. Once you have avoided isolating yourself, once you have asked for support and you have sought for professional help, the goal is to begin to feel better. The goal is to begin to feel better. And I know on this platform, and you know Dr. Blessing's heart, there is no safe place to be than to be with God and in the house of God, to get godly counsel, to get counsel that will refresh your spirit and refresh your soul. Why do you need to seek help? You need to seek help because after you are helped, the goal is for you to help others. After you come out, the goal now is for you to support others. After you come out, the agenda now is for you to say, what did not kill me has made me stronger. So now I'm going to reach out to my community. Now you want to take little small bite sizes. You don't want to just go and try something big. You want to be able to test the waters. And now if I see that someone is physically abusing someone, I'm going to step in. I'm going to offer support. I'm going to let them know the impact that it can have. So how do you help others? Maybe you have a friend, you have a cousin, a friend of a friend that you want to help. Number one, be patient with them, be understanding. You have to learn to separate the person from the trauma. So you can't say that, well, you're always angry, you're always irritable, we can't stand you, you never want to come out. No, you have to be able to separate the Angela that was so sweet, that was so good, from now the Angela that is now hurt. Okay. Number two, offer practical support. If you're not a counselor, don't go and offer counseling. Offer, can I cook for you once a week? Right? Can I help you clean your house? Can I help take your dogs for a walk? Can I help babysit your children? Be available to talk. Can I come over every Wednesday and just talk to you? And then help your loved ones to socialize and to relax. The same things that you did that helped you, suggest it to them. How did the story of Adam, Sarah, and Sue end? Adam now started being free of speaking about his torture in the presence at therapy. In a very safe place, was able to express his emotions and pain and anger. He allowed himself to begin his recovery. No more nightmares, and his depression lifted. What happened to Sarah? Sarah has gradually reconstructed back with her family. Remember, Sarah was the one that was taken from Congo from her family. She's been able to rekindle. She's had her own family now. And now she's been able to find her identity again. It's taken her a long time, but this is her story. Why? Because she sought for help. It was a slow journey, about 5-6 years, but she's getting there. And then, of course, for Sue, she's now been able to talk about her lifelong experience of rejection. And now she's actually a volunteer at the seniors home that talk about seniors that have left their homes to be in a nursing home. So now she's used her pain to help others. In conclusion with all this, we all know that one way or the other, we may have experienced emotional trauma. It could be at the grocery store. It could be on a significant level, loss of a loved one, accident, rejection, divorce, isolation. But when you read the scriptures, Job 14:7, it says, there is hope for a tree. If it's cut down, it will sprout again. There is hope for the young girl, the young adult, the young lady who has experienced emotional trauma. Because even if you cut down the tree, once the season of spring comes, it shoots up again. You're looking at a young girl that have gone through a series of emotional trauma, but I persevered. I was resilient, not by my own strength, but because I had to lean on the word of God. I had to lean on people. I had to lean on therapy. I had to lean on mentors and pastors, and I had to believe in myself that I want to come out, that I don't want to stay in the position of anger and numbness and loss of concentration. And I have a nice bed. I want to sleep in my own bed. I'm sure you all have nice beds. You want to sleep in your own bed. How can you be in bed and not be able to sleep? You want to come out. So even if a tree is cut down, there is still hope for that tree again. So whatever emotional trauma that any one of us have experienced, there is hope, but you want to be able to say that I need help and I want the hope because you're young and you're brave. A brave person, I remember all these Disney characters, when they're brave, you see them with a little sword, like we're going back to fight, all the cartoons that my kids watch. A brave person is not a person that is not knocked down, but they get back up again. And they get back up again saying, I need help. They ask for help. They ask for support. And little by little, same way when you break your hand, you don't tell yourself, well, I have a thread and needle at home, I'm going to stitch up myself. Same way physical trauma, you're not stitching yourself. With emotional trauma, avoid stitching yourself. Get help and know that you can live again and you can thrive again. And once you are healed, you can now go out there and heal others. Last but not the least, Proverbs chapter 3 says, trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. Don't depend on your own weaknesses and your own issues that you've gone through, but trust in the Lord, acknowledge him, and he will bring you out. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you were pleasantly, I was going to use the word blessed, pleasantly informed. You know, when you're pastor, you always talking blessed, pleasantly informed. And but my desire is that anyone that is dealing with emotional trauma will not stay in that place, but will make a decision with all these 12 weeks that you're committed to, you will come out. Thank you so much. And I'll pass it back to Dr. Blessing.
Woo! That was awesome, awesome, awesome. My goodness, I have no words to even speak. You did an amazing,
Thank you.
amazing
You
job.
trained me well. There you go.
Oh, please don't let me blush. That was really awesome. So we are going to go into the discussion section. So I am going to stop recording now so we can be free to discuss. More thank yous are coming.
Oh, you're welcome.